Greetings. Today I want to talk about editing when you're writing. I'm not going to talk about editing as it pertains to video because I don't know how to edit any of my videos. I don't have any software. Even if I did, I just don't know how to do it. I could probably learn, but it's just easier to let you see me in my old natural failing way when I mess up because this is video. If I was actually trying to show myself as a professional speaker, which I do, then I would be a little bit different. But I've got other stuff to show people that I have spoken in front of people, so I don't necessarily need it for the channel. So we do this different. But when it comes to writing, especially blog posts or articles that someone you're hoping will buy and read, it really becomes more important. Actually, the same happens with books. I recently read a book a friend of mine from a long time ago wrote, and there were a lot of errors. There just were tons of them. And so I gave him an honest assessment. I enjoyed the parts that I understood, but there were a lot of errors it really could have used an edit. He admitted that, said that he probably should have found a native speaker because he's originally from Germany, but he should have found a native speaker to edit it for him since he put it out in English. And then I read another book from another friend because I tend to read books of friends of mine who I know have put out a book. I say, I'll buy this and I'll read it. And she only had one error. And it was an error so slight that I could understand how that happens because she probably transcribed just one letter for another one. And it was a 3-letter word. And out of a book of 125 pages, one little word is not going to kill anybody. But I have basically been one of those people who really kind of crushes it when it comes to editing. I have mentioned on my blog, I don't know if you guys know who Guy Kawasaki is. He wrote a book back in 2008 or 2009 called Reality Check. And I got to be one of the editors for his book. So he sent it to me and he asked me if I would edit the second half of the book. And I did. And it got mentioned in his book. And then he sent me a free copy of the book and he autographed it, and that was kind of cool. And it needed an edit. It wasn't overly bad, but it had some sentences that were just way out of whack and certain words here and there. And that's really what good editing is supposed to do. When I wrote my first book, Embrace the Lead, back in 2002, and I was editing it, I realized, my God, I use the same word over and over. Because when I talk, quite often, I tend to defer rather than to be kind of bold and outright. And so when you defer, there's this thing that Ronald Reagan used to do. He'd say, well, and then he would begin something. Well, I just did it. I tend to do that when I talk to a lot of people if I'm not in a leadership authority position. So I do that. I did that throughout the book. So I had to basically go in and replace close to 270 times where I began a sentence with well, comma. Just had to go. And certain other phrases that I tend to use that I had to remove. And luckily I didn't misspell anything, but I did have some words that didn't quite fit. And the way I thought about it is, you know what, every time someone hits one of these things, if they're really paying attention, that's going to interrupt their flow and it's going to mess things up. So I edited that book 3 or 4 times on my own. And then I gave it to a few other people who I knew did editing, and they edited it. And then I did it one last time to make sure it flowed. And I took certain paragraphs and I read them out loud, because if you read stuff out loud, you're definitely going to hear if something is wrong. I did the same with my second book. My second book, I did the exact same thing. Luckily, it was more of a compilation of things that I had previously written, and I ended up rewriting about 50% of what I had there. So they were easier for me to, read them all out loud, and I heard things and I changed them up. And then I had a couple of friends try to read and edit, but things had changed in the course of 10 years. So I actually only had one guy who read the entire thing. I had someone else who read maybe 40% of it, and he only found a couple of things that he would have changed. But I couldn't get anyone else. I probably could have paid for someone professional, but because editing is something that I do for a lot of other people, I pretty much knew, okay, you know what, this is going to be pretty good. If anyone finds anything, it's going to be so minor that, it's not going to hurt anything. But I try to do that on my blogs. Now, I will admit that because I tend to write my blog posts pretty fast, I don't edit every single post. I edit it when I know it's over 2,500 words. Then I go back and I reread everything. But those articles, because they take me longer to put together, I want to make sure, okay, these are definitely going to work. If I'm writing an article that comes in at 1,100 to 1,200 words, I may not necessarily go back and edit that, at least at the time. At some point later on, I'm going to go back and read it, especially when people comment on it. I go back and make sure that everything I said fits their comment. And occasionally I see something, and it's not a misspelling, it's just a word. In other words, I may have wanted has instead of had, and I go back and I change that. Because I never misspell anything. You know what? If you're writing something on a computer and you misspell something, then you're not paying attention, because you always see that little red squiggly line. At least mine is red. Yours may be a different color. But you always see that line telling you that something is probably misspelled, or there's a word there it doesn't understand. It doesn't like code. So you put in HTTP or HTTPS, it just doesn't like code. But you know, if you're looking at that, okay, that's just code. That's not a big deal. But editing really is important. You mess up the flow. You make yourself not look professional. And, you know, it's just one of those kind of things that there are going to be people who are going to hold that against you. It is hard reading a blog post where there are so many edits and errors that needed to be corrected that you just say, that's it. I just got to give up on this. I don't care anymore. That's why I stopped accepting guest posts years ago, because there were so many errors in so many articles that it just boggled my mind to the point that I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I wasn't getting paid enough money for that. And people were supposed to be paying me $75 an article. And then they would send these things that were bad. So anyway, if you're going to write articles, if you're going to write a book, please edit the thing. Find someone who will help you out. Now, if you can't find someone free, you can contact someone like me. I do editing services, and yeah, I'm going to charge you something. It's not going to be super, super outrageous, but you know, I'm going to get paid to read your book. It's just how that is. But it's going to be edited properly. Maybe every once in a while there's going to be a southernism or something thrown in there, but let's hope not. Anyway, my name is Mitch Mitchell. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Let me know your thoughts on editing. And if you know something about video editing, tell me that too. Y'all take care.